Hey everybody, this is an explanation of my review score scale because apparently people have problems with this, mostly in comprehending what it actually means because they try to apply other systems to it and act like certain scores are terrible when they're not, and it really bothers me. Now, I've had the image you're seeing right now on the forums for some time, and if you had taken the time to look at that, then you would have probably had no problems whatsoever. But if you haven't looked at it before, this is your chance to really understand how my system works and how you should look at things, and just how I go about rating things. It's a 0 to a 5 out of 5 scale with half points in between. And it's not a system where you can look at a value and say this corresponds to, say, 100%, like a 5 out of 5 corresponds to 100%. No, it doesn't. A 5 out of 5 does not mean at all 100%. A 3 out of 5 does not mean a 50%, etc., etc. My review scores actually correspond to general categories of games. And that's actually a self-contained score. This is another problem that people have. They try to compare these scores across different genres, and it just doesn't work. So if you're comparing a third-person shooter or a first-person shooter, even though there is a lot of overlap between those genres and mechanics and such like that, it's still a different design and play mentality, so just don't actually compare these scores to one another. It doesn't work out that way. You can compare them within their own genre all you like, and especially compare them within their own series all you like, but don't sit there and try to compare two separate games across two separate genres. It's just not going to work out that well. So, now that we've gotten that out of the way, where it's obvious that it's not a empirical system where a 5 out of 5 means 100%, which it doesn't. It's stuff like that. And we've gotten out of the way that you're not supposed to compare these across genres and such like that. Let's go into the actual scores themselves. Starting with the top of the scale, the 5 out of 5. This is an outstanding game. I consider it a must-own. That's what a 5 out of 5 means. It does not mean that it is a perfect game. There is literally no such thing as a perfect game. A 5 out of 5 means I consider it a must-own for any gamer. Doesn't matter whether you even like the genre or not. I consider it to be a must-own. You must have this game in your collection. It's just either that important to gaming, or it's just that good and that highly enjoyable, and I see how pretty much anybody who even doesn't like the genre can probably like it. So that's what a 5 out of 5 means. A 4.5 is the next step down from that. It's not a must-own for every gamer, but it's definitely a must-own if you like the genre or the series in question especially. And these are just phenomenal games. They're exceptional, that are just extremely enjoyable. And again, I consider these pretty much must-owns, but they're not quite that universal recommendation that I would give a 5 out of 5, which is why you don't see many 5 out of 5s. It's also why you don't see many 4.5s out of 5s. The next step is a 4 out of 5, an excellent game. I very highly recommend these games, but they do have a few glaring issues that should probably be resolved, like technical problems, or maybe a mechanic isn't tuned properly or something like that. A good example of this would be Deus Ex Human Revolution, which I gave a 4 out of 5. And in that review, I said one of the big problems with it was that the boss fights were a pretty big letdown, and they were pretty annoying. So that's pretty much something that would garner a 4 out of 5. It's a really great game, and I very highly recommend it, but it does have a few glaring issues that prevent it from being that pretty much must-own game that I consider within its own genre or a universal recommendation. The next step is a 3.5 out of 5, which means a good game. It is well worth playing, and I do recommend these games, but I don't recommend them at full price. I say these are games that you would wait to go on sale. If it's $60 on launch, then I'd say maybe $30, $40, something like that. That's the kind of thing that I would give a 3.5 out of 5. It's still a good game. It's very enjoyable, but they have more problems than the 4 out of 5s do, and I certainly don't recommend them at full price. A 3 out of 5 is an average game. These are worth playing. They are not bad games, but I don't recommend them at all at full price. So these are the things that I would recommend you get on sale for like $25, $20, something like that. So if you can get them on sale for something like that, then certainly, by all means, get them, and you'll probably enjoy them, especially if you like the genre in question. But they do have quite a few issues that would certainly prevent it from being a must-own, and even prevent it from being what I would consider to be a particularly good game, which is what a 3.5 out of 5 is. The next step is a 2.5 out of 5. This is an underwhelming game. It's not bad. Get that out of your head. A lot of people seem to think that a 2.5 means the game's bad. It's not. It's not a bad game, but I don't really recommend it. These are games that just fall short, and if you can get them for really cheap, I certainly say, hey, you might want to give it a try. But I really don't recommend them from just my general experience with the game, and there might be quite a few glaring issues with it or something like that. It might have a lot of technical problems that need to be resolved before it's even really playable. Something like that. These are games that had potential, but they squandered it, or didn't necessarily even squander it, but they just couldn't live up to that potential, and you can really see where they would improve things later on. Something like that. The next step is a 2 out of 5. This is a mediocre game. It's below average, which means it has many flaws that strongly hinder any enjoyment you might have with the game. So you have to get past all those flaws before you get to any of the good stuff. That's pretty much what a 2 out of 5 means. It does not mean it's a bad game. It means there's a lot of room for improvement. And there are instances where you can look at a 2 out of 5 and then they improve it in a sequel and it becomes a 3 or a 3.5 or maybe even higher than that. So these are games that have plenty of room for improvement, and you can see where they very easily could improve them. And with some good support behind them, they probably can improve them. That said, I don't recommend these games. If it's anything from a 2 or lower, I don't recommend these games. And a 2.5 is a very iffy recommendation. It's one of those only if it's on sale for really cheap, or only if you're a fan of the series or genre in question. A 2 out of 5 means that I wouldn't even really recommend it to genre fans or even series fans. I mean, you might get something out of it, but there are a lot of problems you have to get past to get to that good stuff. And now we get into the scores that a lot of people hate, and I understand why. 1.5 out of 5 means it's a bad game. It has severe flaws that make the game pretty much unenjoyable. So these are games that have so many technical problems that you can almost not play them at all. They're games that have so many mechanical problems that you just can't get any enjoyment out of them. They've got horrible level design, something like that. They just got so many problems that you can't get past the problems, or at least as far as I played, you couldn't really get past the problems to actually get to the good stuff that there might be in there for maybe a minute or two of that several hour long experience or something like that. So these games could be improved. Generally they don't, unless they really put in heavy patching or they really just buckle down for the sequel or something like that. These are games that I definitely don't recommend at all. And so that's pretty much all that I need to say about a 1.5. A 1 out of 5 is a terrible game. It's pretty much unplayable, and it's completely devoid of enjoyment as far as I'm concerned. Now, there are some people out there who might get something out of it, but these are games that I really can't see why anyone would enjoy them. Just from a personal standpoint, I would look at this and go, okay, this has so many flaws, and the gameplay might be so rudimentary, I really can't see why anyone would enjoy it. And when I say that, I actually don't mean to be insulting to people who do enjoy it. I literally mean I don't understand how you enjoy something like this. So that's, again, from personal experience. I don't understand why people would enjoy it, but apparently some people do. So I tend to be very sparing on the 1s and 1.5s when I can help it, but still, they're there, and it saddens me that I would actually use them. The next two you've never actually seen me give, and that's because I have yet to play anything that's quite this bad. A 0.5 out of 5 is an exceptionally terrible game. It's completely unplayable, and it is extremely irritating to play. Now, this has happened before, but it hasn't been a review. What it's been has been a games that infuriate me to no end, where I just basically said, hey, I can't play this game. It literally will not work. And that's the kind of thing that would go into a 0.5. It's basically stuff I can't get running. And so that's pretty much why you'll never see me give a 0.5 out of 5, although it is still there on my scale anyway, just in case I do manage to play it, but it's that bad. Again, I have yet to play anything quite this bad. Even E.T. on Atari 2600 isn't quite this bad. It's pretty much a 1 out of 5. Still. The next one, I don't ever anticipate giving ever, but it's there anyway, and I actually am kind of amused that I would even describe it as this. But a 0 out of 5 is so terrible it defies explanation. These are the games that just leave me completely flabbergasted, that I just can't comprehend how they were made. I can't comprehend how awful they are. And if you think about it, if there's pretty much nothing that would ever get a 0.5 out of 5, even something like E.T. or Superman 64, then imagine how bad a game has to be to get a 0 out of 5. It has to be an utter abomination of gaming. So you'll probably never see me give a 0 out of 5. I hope you never see me give a 0 out of 5. That would be just an atrocity, basically. That would make me lose all faith in gaming, really. So, there you go, folks. That's the scale. If there are any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. I mean, if you're going to ask me about various review scores that I've given over the years, then that's probably not appropriate for this. But if you have questions about the system itself, feel free to ask them.